I always used to think New Year's Eve was kind of overrated. Everyone's pretending to have the best night of their life. Half the people are drunk by 10 p.m., and the countdown rarely lives up to the hype. Still, every year I'd end up at someone's apartment, nursing a cheap beer, dodging questions about who I was dating, and half watching the ball drop like it actually meant something. This year, though, it was different. Not because I had big plans. I didn't, but because of him. And I had no clue what he had planned for me. It all started a couple weeks before Christmas, when my roommate Kevin said his cousin Ryan would be crashing on our couch over break. "He's cool," Kevin said, like that explained anything. "Just broke up with his girlfriend, so he's laying low for a bit." I didn't think much of it. People crash at our place all the time. But when Ryan showed up with a single duffel bag and this kind of quiet sadness around him, I noticed. He had these soft brown eyes that looked like they'd seen some shit, and a crooked smile that made it worse, because it made you want to fix him. For the first week, we barely talked. He was polite, clean, said thank you when I passed him the remote or tossed him a blanket. But mostly, he kept to himself. I'd walk into the living room and find him sitting on the floor with headphones on, staring at nothing, like the music was the only thing keeping him together. Then one night, I couldn't sleep. It was past midnight. I walked into the kitchen for some water and found him there, barefoot, drinking orange juice straight from the carton. He froze. "Shit, sorry." I just shrugged. "It's your heartbreak, man. Drink what you need." That made him smile, like really smile, first time I'd seen it for real. He leaned against the counter and said, "You ever just want to disappear for a while?" I nodded. "Pretty much every day." We talked for over an hour. Nothing dramatic. Just dumb stuff. Like movies that made us cry and how neither of us ever understood taxes. But something shifted after that. He started sitting with me on the couch instead of the floor. He'd laugh at my bad jokes. He started asking me things, like what kind of music I listened to, if I believed in soulmates. I didn't. Not until that night. By the time New Year's rolled around, I wasn't sure what we were anymore. He hadn't said anything. I hadn't either. I didn't even know if he was into guys. But there was something. It was in the way he looked at me when he thought I wasn't paying attention. The way his hand would brush against mine and linger just long enough to make me wonder. We got invited to this rooftop party by one of Kevin's friends. I almost didn't go, but Ryan said, "Come with me," and I did. Because I was already halfway gone for him, and I didn't even realize it yet. The party was loud, too many people packed into a small space with not enough heaters and way too many solo cups. But Ryan stuck close. He barely let me out of his sight. Every time I glanced his way, he was already watching me. At 11:40, the countdown started. People were shouting, music blasting, couples pairing off. I stood near the railing, holding a drink I wasn't really drinking, trying not to let myself hope for anything. I wasn't brave like that. I wasn't the guy who got kissed at midnight. Ryan walked up beside me. He didn't say anything at first, just stood there, close enough that our jackets brushed. Then he said, "You know, I've never kissed a guy before." My chest went still. I turned to look at him. He wasn't smiling. He looked nervous. "I mean," he said, rubbing the back of his neck, "not yet." And suddenly I couldn't hear the crowd or the music or anything at all. Just him. Just that sentence. "Is that something you've wanted to do?" I asked. He nodded slowly. "Yeah, but only with someone who'd matter." I blinked. My heart was beating out of rhythm, like my body couldn't keep up with what was happening. Do I matter?" His eyes searched mine, and I swear the whole city disappeared. "You do," he said. "You really do." And then the countdown hit 10. 10, 9, I didn't move. 8, 7, he stepped closer. 6, 5, his hand touched mine. 4, 3, 2, 1. And then his lips were on mine. Soft, careful, just to press at first. Like he wasn't sure if he was doing it right. Like he didn't want to scare me. But I kissed him back. Because there was nothing else I could do. I'd never kissed a guy before midnight either. But now I didn't want to stop. I didn't hear the cheering. Didn't hear the fireworks. The world could have exploded behind me, and I wouldn't have noticed. Because the moment Ryan's lips touched mine, everything else fell away. It wasn't fireworks, it wasn't some cinematic swell of music or sudden lightning bolt. It was better. It was warm, intentional, a little shaky. It was a kiss that said, I'm trying, and I'm scared, and I think you might be worth all of this. And when I kissed him back, it wasn't because I'd been waiting for midnight. It was because I didn't want to wait anymore. He pulled away first, just enough for us to be nose to nose, breathing each other's air. His eyes were searching mine, like he was still waiting for the moment I'd pull back and laugh and tell him it was a joke. But I didn't. I just whispered, hey. That made him smile. A real one. Small, crooked, the kind of smile you give when you're trying not to fall too fast and failing anyway. Hey, he whispered back. For a moment, we just stood there like that, close enough to kiss again, but not rushing it. The party behind us kept going. Someone popped champagne. Somebody yelled about missing the ball drop. None of it mattered, not to us. I didn't think you. I started, then stopped. Ryan tilted his head, his fingers brushing mine. Didn't think I was into guys? I didn't know, I said honestly. I didn't want to assume. He looked down for a second, then back up at me. I didn't know either. Not really. I mean, I think I've always sort of known. I just didn't let myself figure it out until recently. I nodded slowly. Breakups will do that to you. That earned a soft laugh. Yeah, among other things. We both knew Kevin was going to have questions. So were all the people inside who just watched what happened from 10 feet away. But right then, I didn't care. I felt something shift inside me, this quiet click of, oh. This is what it feels like when something real begins. We stayed out on that rooftop way past when it made sense. The cold eventually caught up to us, our breaths coming out in little white clouds as the warmth of the moment gave way to the reality of winter air. I could feel Ryan shivering beside me but not moving. Like part of him was scared if we went back inside, the whole thing would fade. I nudged him. You want to head home? He hesitated. You mean back to the apartment? Yeah. He looked at me for a long second. Can I still crash on the couch? You're not just crashing anymore, I said. You're staying. That made something flicker across his face, something between relief and disbelief. Come on, I added, turning toward the stairs. We'll steal Kevin's leftover pizza and pretend we're still hungry. Deal. The walk back to the apartment was quiet. Snow had started to fall, just lightly, like it didn't want to ruin the night. Ryan shoved his hands deep in his coat pockets. We didn't talk much, but it wasn't awkward. It felt like everything that needed to be said had already passed between us without words. When we got home, Kevin was still out, thank God. I wasn't ready for the interrogation just yet. Ryan kicked off his shoes and flopped on the couch with the kind of sigh that only happens when your whole body finally relaxes. I grabbed the pizza box from the fridge, tossed him a slice, and took my usual spot on the other end of the couch. But this time, he moved. He slid closer. Not all the way. Not presumptuous. Just enough so that our knees touched again. We ate in silence for a few minutes. The kind of silence that makes your heart beat louder. I kept catching him glancing at me like he was working up to something. Finally, he said, I was scared you wouldn't kiss me back. I blinked, then set down the crust of my slice. Why would you think that? He shrugged. I've been acting weird. I didn't want to ruin anything. I know you're not like super out or anything. That made me pause. Not because he was wrong, but because I'd never really said it out loud to anyone. I dated a guy in college, very briefly. But we kept it quiet. And it didn't end well. I'm not hiding, I said slowly. I just don't always know who's safe. His expression softened. You're safe with me? I nodded. I think I knew that already. I just didn't know what it meant until tonight. Ryan leaned back, stretching out his legs. This isn't some post-breakup rebound thing, just so you know. I figured, I said. You don't kiss like someone who's trying to forget. He looked at me sideways, a grin pulling at the corner of his mouth. How do I kiss then? I felt heat rise in my face. Like someone who's trying not to mess it up. His grin faded into something quieter. That's exactly what I'm doing. And before I could say anything else, he reached out and took my hand. Not fast, not dramatic, just this simple, deliberate thing. Like he was telling me without words that he wanted to stay right here. That he didn't want this to be just a kiss, just a moment. I squeezed his hand back, because neither did I. I woke up to the sound of quiet breathing, warm and steady beside me. For a second, I forgot where I was. Then I opened my eyes and saw Ryan, curled up on the other end of the couch, one arm tucked under his head, the blanket we'd shared halfway slid off his shoulder. He looked peaceful, soft, in a way I hadn't seen since he showed up 2 weeks ago. Sometime after we held hands last night, we fell asleep watching a movie. I couldn't remember which one. It barely mattered. What I remembered was how his thumb gently moved against mine while the credits rolled, how he didn't pull away when I shifted closer, how my head eventually leaned against his shoulder like it belonged there. We hadn't kissed again after that rooftop moment. And we didn't need to. I slipped out from under the blanket carefully, not wanting to wake him. The apartment was still dark. Early morning shadows stretched across the kitchen tile. Kevin's door was closed, probably still passed out at whoever's party he'd ended up at. I started the coffee, then sat at the table and tried to wrap my head around the fact that I'd kissed a guy for the first time last night, and it felt more natural than anything I'd done all year. More than that, I liked him. I didn't just want that kiss. I wanted all of it. The way he looked at me when he thought I wasn't watching. The half smile he gave when he didn't want me to see how nervous he was. The awkward, vulnerable version of Ryan I'd started to see underneath the quiet. I was still trying to sort through those thoughts when I heard the blanket rustle behind me. "Is that coffee?" he asked, voice raspy. I turned. He was sitting up, blinking sleep out of his eyes, hair a complete mess. It looked good on him. "Yeah," I said. "Didn't know how you'd take it. Hot and black, like my— well, never mind. That joke only works when you've had more sleep." I chuckled and handed him a mug. He wrapped his hands around it, taking a sip before giving me this look, like he wanted to say something but didn't know if it was too soon. So I started. "How are you feeling? About everything?" He gave a small nod. "Good. Weird, but good. Weird good or weird bad? Weird like it still doesn't feel real. Like I've replayed last night about 100 times in my head since I woke up." My heart skipped. "Yeah?" "Yeah," he said. "And every time, I keep thinking, I didn't screw it up. You kissed me back," I smiled, leaning against the counter. "Of course I did." Ryan looked down into his coffee for a second, then up at me. "Can I ask you something kind of intense?" "Shoot." He hesitated, then said, "What happens now?" The question was so honest it hit me like a punch to the chest. Not in a bad way, just in a this is real kind of way. I walked over, sat next to him on the couch again. "I don't know exactly, but I'd like to figure it out." His shoulders relaxed a little. "Okay, good, because I want to too." We sat there, side by side, hands brushing, but not quite touching, as the sun started to peek through the windows. There was no pressure. No need to define everything in one conversation. Just two guys, tired and hopeful, wondering what came next. He nudged me with his elbow. "So you're not going to pretend last night didn't happen?" "Not a chance." "Cool, because I'd really like to kiss you again when I don't taste like pizza and regret." I laughed, turning to him. "Yeah? What about now?" His smile turned lopsided. "Now works." And then we kissed again. This time, slower, more sure. No countdowns, no cheering crowd. Just the soft hum of the coffee machine and the morning light painting lines across his face. When we finally pulled apart, he leaned his forehead against mine. "I never thought my first kiss with a guy would be on a rooftop," he murmured. "Yeah, well," I said, "I never thought mine would be with my roommate's cousin." He snorted. "Think Kevin's gonna freak out?" I shrugged. "Only if you start stealing his leftovers," Ryan grinned. "Guess I'll have to earn my place around here then." "You already have." The first real test came around noon. I was mid-sip on my second coffee when the front door opened and Kevin stumbled in, hoodie half-zipped, sunglasses on indoors like he'd been up all night, which, knowing him, he had. Ryan and I were still on the couch, not exactly cuddling, but not doing a great job pretending we weren't suddenly something. Kevin froze in the doorway. Ryan shifted slightly beside me. I felt his thigh press against mine, just barely, like he was making a silent decision not to move away. Kevin said, lowering his sunglasses and squinting like he thought maybe the lighting was playing tricks on him. "Morning." "Hey," I replied, setting my mug down. He looked between us, my hand resting on the couch, Ryan sitting just a little too close to be casual. And you could see the math happening in real time, the way his brow furrowed slightly, the quick glance at our clothes from the night before, still wrinkled from the party, the lingering smell of stale beer and leftover adrenaline hanging in the room. Then, finally, he said it. Did I miss something last night? Ryan was the one who spoke first. Yeah. A lot, actually, I tensed. Not because I thought Kevin would react badly, but because this was the first time either of us had to say it out loud in front of someone else. Kevin blinked. Wait, hold up, did you too? He gestured vaguely between us, like that would clarify things. We kissed, I said plainly. Ryan nodded, backing me up. And we're figuring out what that means. There was a beat of silence. Kevin's eyes darted between us again. Then he walked into the kitchen and said, Cool, you owe me new bed sheets if you use my room. Ryan choked on his coffee. What? No, we didn't. I'm kidding, Kevin said, popping open the fridge. Well, kind of. Just don't be gross. I looked at Ryan, eyebrows raised. He just shook his head, half laughing, relieved. Kevin came back with a Gatorade and flopped into the armchair across from us. Look, as long as no one's crying and I don't have to listen to any moaning through the walls, I'm good. Honestly, it's about time something interesting happened around here. I exhaled. He raised the bottle. Congrats on the gay awakening or whatever. Now someone please explain what happened after I left that party. So we told him. The rooftop, the countdown, the kiss. We left out the quieter parts, the way Ryan looked at me afterward, the way my heart hadn't really calmed down since. But Kevin seemed genuinely happy for us in that disinterested, straight guy way that said, I support you, but I will absolutely make fun of you the second you start acting like a couple in a rom-com. After that, it got easier. Not everything, but some things. Ryan didn't go back to sleeping on the couch. Not immediately. But he didn't leave either. He stayed for another few days, and it felt like we were building something. Not rushing it, just letting it take shape. We went on walks, shared food. Talked about stupid stuff at 2 a.m., like the difference between a crush and something more. But there were moments when the world crept back in. One night, we were out getting takeout, just standing in line at this little Thai place around the corner, and I reached for his hand without thinking. He pulled back. Not hard. Not even mean. Just instinct. And I saw it in his eyes immediately. Regret. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I'm not used to. It's okay. I cut in. But the truth was, it stung. Not because I expected him to be out and proud after one kiss, but because for a second I forgot he wasn't. We walked home in silence. Later that night, curled up under the same blanket on the couch, he looked at me like he wanted to say something. And I waited, giving him time. I'm scared, he finally admitted. Not of you, just of what this means, of what comes next. I don't even know how to be this version of myself. I didn't pretend to have answers. I just said, you don't have to figure it out all at once. He nodded, eyes shining in the low light. What if I mess it up? You probably will, I said, smiling. So will I. That's kind of the deal. Ryan leaned his head on my shoulder. You're okay with going slow? I'm okay with going real, I said, whatever speed that takes. And he whispered, okay, like it was the first time he believed it. We didn't kiss that night. We just sat there, hearts beating quietly together. And maybe that was more intimate than any kiss could have been. Ryan stayed. What was supposed to be a week-long visit turned into 2, then 3. Eventually, Kevin just shrugged and started saying our place when people asked where he lived. Nobody questioned it. Not really. And Ryan didn't rush to leave. Not because he didn't have anywhere to go, but because, slowly, it had started to feel like he was already where he needed to be. We weren't officially dating. We hadn't put a label on it, but we were becoming something real. The kind of thing that didn't need a definition right away. Just small proof, stitched together through moments that felt too natural to ignore. Like the way Ryan would always make 2 mugs of coffee in the morning, even when I didn't ask. Or the way he'd knock on my door late at night. Not to talk, just to sit with me, wordless and warm, like he couldn't fall asleep unless I was nearby. Still, There were bumps. Like the night we ran into a couple of Kevin's friends at a bar. We were all there together, me, Kevin, Ryan, and a few others, packed into a dim booth under flickering neon, half listening to a band no one liked. Ryan sat close, his knee pressed against mine under the table. His laugh kept brushing past my ear, and at one point, I reached over and touched his hand. Just lightly. Just enough to say, "Hey, I see you." He flinched, not dramatically, not enough for anyone else to notice. But I felt it. That little stiffening of his posture, the look in his eyes when he pulled his hand back like it had gotten too close to a flame. He didn't say anything right away, but he didn't touch me again for the rest of the night. Back at the apartment, I waited for him to say something. He didn't. So I did. Did I do something wrong? Ryan paused halfway through, taking off his jacket. What? At the bar, I said. You pulled away. He opened his mouth, closed it again, finally said, I wasn't ready. That stung. I didn't want it to. But it did. Not ready to what? Be seen with me? He looked hurt by that. No, God, no. That's not it. He ran a hand through his hair. It's hard, okay? I'm still figuring this out. Every time I think I've got a handle on it, I get blindsided. I crossed my arms. Blindsided by what? By how much I want to be near you and how scary that still feels in public. It was honest. Too honest. And I didn't know what to say to that without sounding like I wanted more than he could give. So I sat down, let the silence stretch, gave him space. After a few minutes, he sat next to me. Quiet, still unsure. I'm not ashamed of you, he said softly. I know. But I've spent a long time being one version of myself. The version that didn't look at guys like that. The version that never had to explain anything. And now, everything's different. I'm different. I looked at him, his eyes raw in the low light. You don't have to be perfect at this. I'm not asking for that. He took a breath. What are you asking for? Just don't hide from me. He nodded. I won't. And that night, for the first time, he fell asleep in my bed instead of the couch. Fully clothed, both of us on our backs, the blanket barely covering our legs. But it meant something. It meant he was trying. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of him quietly brushing his teeth in the bathroom, using my toothbrush. He caught my eye in the mirror and grinned, a toothpaste foam on his lip. Morning, he said, like we'd been waking up this way forever. As winter deepened, our routines got quieter, more familiar. He started cooking again. Badly, but with effort. I started drawing again, sketching him, sometimes without him knowing. There was a kind of peace to it, a rhythm. One afternoon, while I was working on something for class, Ryan came up behind me, rested his chin on my shoulder, and said, You know, I've never felt this safe before. I stopped what I was doing. Like I've never had someone who let me be in between, not totally figured out, not broken, just trying. I turned, met his eyes. You don't have to be anything else. And he kissed me right there. Soft like it was a thank you, like it was a promise. It was a Wednesday when Ryan got the call. I was making pasta, badly, overboiling the water while trying to peel garlic with a dull knife when I saw his face change. He was sitting on the couch, phone pressed to his ear, his body tense in a way that hadn't shown up in weeks, like something from the outside world had finally pushed its way into the little bubble we'd made. He hung up without saying much, just a quiet, okay, yeah, I'll let you know. I waited. He stood, rubbing the back of his neck. That was my mom. I nodded, drying my hands on a dish towel. Everything okay? He didn't answer right away. She wants me to come home for a bit, said she and my dad had been asking about me. There was a weight in those words. I could feel it before he even said the next part. They don't know. I already knew what he meant. About us. About anything. I'd figured it out weeks ago in the way he got quiet anytime someone mentioned family or home. But hearing him say it out loud made it real. You thinking about going? I asked. He nodded slowly. I probably should. It's been a while. I tried not to read too much into it. Tried not to let my chest clench. Yeah, you should. He looked at me then. I don't know what I'll say. I don't even know if I can say it. You don't have to figure it all out right now, I told him. Just be honest when you're ready. He walked over, wrapped his arms around me. You make it sound so easy. It's not, I said, but it's better than pretending you're not who you are. He stayed like that for a long time, face tucked into my neck like he was trying to memorize the shape of safety before he had to leave it. The day he left, it snowed. Not a blizzard. Just that quiet kind of snowfall that made everything feel slower, like the world was holding its breath. He packed light. He always did, but I noticed he didn't take everything. His hoodie stayed on the back of my desk chair. His toothbrush was still in the bathroom. A pair of socks he always stole from me remained under the coffee table. Back in a few days, he said, zipping up his coat. You don't have to promise, I replied. Just come back when you're ready. Ryan leaned in, pressed his forehead against mine. I'm already ready, he said. I just have to catch the rest of me up to that. We kissed one more time at the door. A slow, steady kiss. The kind that holds more meaning than words ever could. Then he was gone. The apartment felt different without him. Not empty. Just off balance. Kevin noticed. It's weirdly quiet without the cousin. Yeah, I said. It is. You miss him? I paused, then nodded. Yeah. I really do. Kevin didn't tease. He just passed me the remote and said, He'll be back. You guys are disgustingly cute. I smiled, even though it hurt a little. The first day, Ryan texted a photo of his dog licking his face. The caption read, He missed me more than I thought he would. The second day he sent, Dad's asking questions. Not ready yet. On the third night I got, Do you think it's stupid to come out if it might make everything harder? I thought for a long time before replying. Only if you think pretending will make it easier. His reply came hours later. I keep thinking about the rooftop. I smiled at the screen, heart aching in that way it does when you want someone close and can't have them. Me too, I wrote back. It was day 5 when the knock came at the door. I thought it was Kevin. I was in sweatpants, eating cereal at noon, barely awake. But when I opened the door, it was Ryan. He looked exhausted. His hair was messy. His jacket was dusted with snow. But his eyes, they were clearer than I'd ever seen. I told them, he said, before I could even speak. I froze. And? He exhaled. It wasn't great. But it wasn't the end of the world either. I stepped aside, letting him in. They didn't understand, he continued, slipping off his coat. Still don't. But they listened. I said I didn't have all the answers yet, but I was figuring it out. And I told them about you. That hit me harder than I expected. What'd you say? I asked quietly. He walked over, stood inches away. I said I met someone who makes me feel like the version of myself I always wanted to be. And then he kissed me. Not like the rooftop, not like the couch or the quiet mornings. This was different. This was a kiss that said, I'm here. That said, I came back. That said, this isn't just something new anymore. This is real. We didn't say much for the rest of that day. We didn't need to. After that kiss, after he stood there in the middle of our apartment and told me he'd said the words out loud to people who mattered, I just held him. He let me, his arms wrapped around my waist, his forehead resting on my shoulder, and I could feel the way he exhaled like he'd been holding in a breath for years. Kevin came home later and raised an eyebrow when he saw Ryan's duffel bag back by the door. Told you he'd be back? He said casually, walking to the fridge. Ryan chuckled. You're real chill about this. Kevin cracked open a soda. My standards are low. As long as nobody's crying on the floor or stealing my leftovers, I'm good. Ryan shot me a look. Did you cry? Only when you took the last cinnamon Pop-Tart, I said. Kevin didn't even look up. Fair. That weekend, everything shifted, but not in the way I expected. It wasn't that things suddenly became easy. Ryan still had his moments. There were days when he got quiet for no reason, when I could see him pulling back into himself even though he didn't want to. But now, he let me pull him back out. We started going out more. Not clubs, not bars, just real-world stuff, getting groceries together, walking in the park, running into people we knew. He held my hand in public for the first time at the farmer's market. No warning, just reached for it while we were looking at overpriced strawberries. When I looked at him, surprised, he shrugged. Figure I might as well get good at this. That was Ryan. He didn't always know how to be brave, but he practiced it, for me, in small ways, and each one meant more than I could explain. Mid-February, we found ourselves back at Sam's rooftop. Not for a party. It was late, almost midnight again. The place was mostly dark, quiet except for the wind and the low hum of the city beneath us. We'd grabbed hot drinks from the coffee shop down the street, and Ryan said, "Come with me," like he was about to show me a secret. I should have guessed where we were going. He stood in the same spot where he'd kissed me the first time, looked out over the skyline like he needed a reminder that time really had passed. Then he turned to me. "You remember what I said back then?" he asked. "I remember all of it." He smiled. "I didn't know what I was doing. You were doing fine." "I was terrified," he said. "I didn't know how to feel what I felt and not screw it up." "You didn't." Ryan stepped closer. "I still don't know what I'm doing half the time. That's kind of the point." He reached for my hand, threading his fingers through mine. "But I do know this," he said. "That kiss, it was the beginning of something. And I want more of it. More of this." I leaned in. "You already have it." We kissed again, right there on the same rooftop, like a loop closing. Only this time, there was no countdown. No pressure. Just us. And when we pulled apart, Ryan said something he hadn't said before. "I love you." Simple. Bare. No drama. Just truth. I blinked. It hit me all at once. Not because I didn't feel the same, but because I did. So much that it scared me a little, but I didn't hesitate. "I love you too." He grinned and pulled me into him again. "You know," he said after a minute, "I'm really glad I kissed you before midnight." "Yeah?" "Yeah," he said. "Because everything after that has been the best beginning I never saw coming. We never really had a formal anniversary. There wasn't a line in the sand where we became a couple, no, 'Will you be my boyfriend?' moment written in bold. It just happened, quietly, naturally, like waking up one day and realizing your life had already rearranged itself around someone else. But every time New Year's rolled around, that rooftop memory came back. It became our thing. The next year, we went back to Sam's party. Now together, no hesitation. Kevin came too, fully embracing his role as third wheel. Ryan brought snacks no one asked for. I brought a bottle of wine I couldn't pronounce. And when the countdown started, we didn't look around or check the time. We just leaned into each other, laughing against the noise, and kissed without waiting for midnight. Because for us, midnight wasn't the start. Midnight was the moment everything changed, yes, but the start had come before that. In small glances, gentle hesitations, the almosts and maybes that finally turned into a yes. Ryan ended up staying permanently. Not just in our apartment, but in every part of my life. He picked up a job nearby, eventually applied to finish his degree. I helped him with his essays. He helped me remember to eat something other than cereal. There were hard days. Coming out wasn't a one-time event. It happened in pieces. At family dinners, work events, chance run-ins with old friends. But with every uncomfortable moment came a better one. New memories, new conversations, new people who showed up and surprised us with their quiet support. His mom sent me a Christmas card the next year. "Thank you for taking care of my son," she wrote. "I think he's finally taking care of himself now, too." We traveled a little. Nothing extravagant, just road trips up the coast and camping weekends that usually ended in burned marshmallows and cold feet. But it was enough. We were enough. One spring evening, Ryan came home with paint on his jeans and a folded piece of paper in his pocket. "What's that?" I asked. He handed it to me, pretending to be casual. "Lease agreement. Thought maybe we should find a place that's ours." I smiled. "You sure you can handle my cooking full-time?" "Pretty sure," he said, kissing me softly. "As long as I can still steal your socks." Years later, we still kept that old tradition alive. Every New Year's Eve, no matter where we were, no matter who we were with, we kissed before midnight, just to remind ourselves where it all began. Not at the strike of 12. Not at some big announcement or public gesture, but in a glance, in a choice, in a quiet decision to stop waiting and start becoming. And I still remember that first time. how it felt to have someone see me, really see me, for the first time. Because I never kissed a guy before midnight. But now, I kiss the same one every time the clock hits 12. And I still can't believe he was planning to be my first.